Welcome back. Well, let's go back to the ANC's National General Council. Juniour Khumalo is standing by. He is with the Speaker now of the National Assembly, Toko Didiza. Juniour, good afternoon to you. What's the latest there?
Good afternoon to you, Stephen, and a good afternoon to our viewers. Indeed, yet another day of breaking into commissions and the ANC delegates basically speaking about some of the challenges as well as the successes of the current administration as elected at the conference in 2022. Today, the main focus has been around the election strategy of the ANC going into the local government elections next year, but also speaking about the triple BEE policy and whether it is still working for all South Africans, since there has been a bit of complaints, especially from the GNU partner of the ANC, the Democratic Alliance, who are calling for the scrapping of that particular policy. But as you've already indicated, I am joined by the Speaker of the National Assembly, who has been chairing one of those breakaway groups and the delegates. Thank you so much, Speaker, for speaking to us. How has the discussions been going? You've been chairing some of them. How have they been going so far?
The discussions have been going very well. As you know, the NGC is about the mid-term assessment of the performance of the organization led by the National Executive on how we've performed on the resolutions that we took in the last conference. And therefore, in that assessment, delegates are also able to reflect on their own on what needs to be done going further, whether they feel that the progress that has been made or non-progress has actually been because of particular reasons that are either internal weaknesses or there could be externalities that have affected some of the implementation. For instance, you know that the budget squeeze in the past 2 years have had an impact on the delivery of services and how the various spheres of government might have been able to undertake the programs that they had set for themselves. One of the things, for instance, which in the commission that I'm in, we're reflecting on, is the funding model of local government, is the funding model of the legislatures, because you would appreciate that there has been certain legislation, for instance, that have been taken back by the Constitution on the basis that have not been public consultation. And in that instance, you ask yourself, therefore, what would Parliament do if it doesn't have enough resources? What would legislators do, particularly where some of those legislation requires provinces to undertake public participation? If they don't have enough resources, then there will be limitations. And I think those are the issues that the commissions are saying, we cannot delay on those matters. We need to address them. When it comes on local government funding model, you know that some of our local government don't even have a tax base from which they can draw revenue. So in that instance, how do you expect better functionality and better service delivery in those areas? So part of the recommendations that are being made, that will be made in plenary, it's how do we actually relook at this matter and be able to assist. Again, issues of alignment between the services of districts and municipalities, particularly if you look at issues of water resources. How do we actually ensure that where bottlenecks has been about reticulation because of lack of capacity in some of the municipality, what is the possibilities for improving and enhancing intervention from your district and even from national government to make sure that communities do not suffer?
And speaking about different spheres of government and how they are serving South Africans, you are leading in the National Assembly. In the previous administration, the National Assembly has been accused, especially the members of the ANC, of protecting some of their own and not holding them to account. How has this been improved during your term of office?
Well, there would be perceptions on different sides that maybe the ruling, or rather the governing party, as there would be not just in South Africa, elsewhere in the world, you'll find those perceptions that at times it is viewed as though the legislative arm of that, government is protective to the executive. But I would actually say not quite there, not entirely. If you look in this administration, even in the previous administration, there have been very robustness in how the members of parliament have actually scrutinized executive action. You will recall even before, in the 6th administration, 5th, 6th, where the committee that is responsible for public enterprises did a lot of scrutiny on the performance on the public enterprises, and in particular ESCOM. Part of that report of the parliament was actually sent to the Zondo Commission. So I wouldn't say Parliament, even in the past, have been lax. But obviously, you'll have a different dynamic when you've got 18 parties and you actually have reduced majority when no one has a 50% threshold. What becomes more important is how, as legislature, we're able to ensure that in the manner in which we work together, we do not compromise, what citizens need to acquire. But also, we are very conscious about how to manage the political dynamics that would obviously come when certain legislation or certain issues have to be managed, again, not to the disadvantage of the electorate. And I would say that committees have done very well in this 1 year, because we've just finished 1 year. And I've seen, robustness. You might have seen where the local government portfolio committee, as a result of their assessment of the Auditor General's report, they actually invited the provincial portfolio committees and went to the local municipalities where there were adverse or sometimes disclaimers in terms of local government to really get to the bottom as to what is happening in these municipalities. They started in the Free State, they went in the Northwest, which I think was seeing a very interesting dynamic of how the legislative sector as a whole holds the executive to account. In this past 2 weeks, the National Assembly has actually passed, certain rules which again enforce accountability from the executive. We've seen how the questions, for instance, that have been posed by ministers, both written and oral, have actually been answered to by the executive coming from the legislature, because questions on their own are also part of accountability and oversight. Sometimes we see as a public as though there's a little bit of gimmicks, but when members of parliament want answers, it's based on their assessment of what the electorate think about those issues, but also of what the members of executive might have said they would do, and therefore to really get it to the bottom, if something has not been done, you said it was going to be done, what is the problem? So the portfolio committees also, South Africa has an advantage that our portfolio committees, most of them, actually I would say, all of them except the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, are open to the public, where, the exercise of that executive and holding the executive to account is actually done where citizens can also be able to observe whether or not indeed we are being represented fully by our public representatives.
Speaking about representing the public, there has been a lot of utterances around your possible standing for the ANC leadership and presidency. I know the 2027 elective conference of the ANC is a bit too far, but should the branches of the ANC ask you to stand, are you going to stand as a candidate for president of the ANC?
Well, I've seen the interest, particularly from the members of the media, which is very intriguing, if I were to say the least, because all of us know the processes of the ANC and how the elective conferences are prepared for. And I just think we need to be patient and wait for that process.
Okay, but is it about time for a female, a woman leader within the ANC?
For me, I think at times we divert what is the core business of what we're here for. And I think now issues about how do we win the 2026 election? Okay. How do we prepare for ourselves to win the 29 election? That should be uppermost to us. But also, as members of the public, I think what is uppermost is what are these public representatives doing to change our lives for the better?
Thank you. Thank you so much. That is the Speaker of the National Assembly, Diza, there, saying let's rather focus on the looming local government elections as well as those national and provincial elections, Stephen, and not talk about the ANC succession. We are, though, expecting the Secretary General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, to also give an address, a media briefing, just to speak about how those processes of the ANC and the discussions of the ANC have been going. The stage is already set. We were expecting him to start at about 1:30, but there seems to be a bit of delay, Stephen.
Khumalo, thank you very much indeed for that. Do appreciate it. Very interesting response from Toko Diza to the question of whether or not she will run. A lot more news to come. We'll also, of course, be live to those interviews for the new National Director of Public Prosecutions. Stay with us.